was on Newsmax one time, and they were talking about how they were complaining when Kamala Harris was running, and they were saying if they mispronounce her name that it's racist. And so I was on Newsmax that day when they were talking about it, and I said, yeah, I want to start a new rule that everybody who mispronounces Giaramita has to donate $1 to this fund, and then I can retire.
Giaramita fund, right?
Shotgun with Charlie.
Riding shotgun refers to the practice of sitting next to the driver in a moving vehicle. The term riding shotgun came around after the time of the stagecoach, when somebody used to sit next to the driver holding a shotgun, in case they ran into bandits. My name is Charlie Cook, and I drive a lot. I like to talk to people while I'm driving, so I interview people in my car while I'm driving. Welcome to Riding Shotgun with Charlie. All right, before we start this episode of Riding Shotgun with Charlie, I want to thank everyone for tuning in and watching the show. I appreciate that you guys are here. If you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do. And if you're subscribing, you may as well hit the notification bell so you know when new shows come out. If you really like the show, which I think you ought, you should share it with a friend, because this is how we get the stagecoach across America. All right, welcome to Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Today we are in Norristown, Pennsylvania.
King of Prussia.
King of Prussia. And we are here with Mike G, because I know I'm going to screw up your last name. Giaramita.
Giaramita, that is
Giaramita.
correct.
Woo.
You owe $0 for that one.
We're not done.
Okay.
Mike, thank you so much for being on the show.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You can tell from the way Mike is dressed that he is not a gun instructor. You're a pro gun attorney.
I am, and in the words of Even Nappen, how dare you call me an attorney? I gotta let you know, I gotta advise you, today's episode of the program cannot be called Riding Shotgun. It must be called Riding Springfield Hellcat. And the reason is, under 6107 of the Uniform Firearms Act in Pennsylvania, it's illegal to carry a loaded shotgun in a vehicle.
Really?
It is.
Okay.
And the reason is, under the Uniform Firearms Act, for most purposes, under Section 6102, you've got sort of a funky definition of the term firearm. And it really only includes, for the purposes of discussion, your modern handguns, your short-barreled rifles, and your short-barreled shotguns.
Okay.
So it doesn't include your conventional long guns. So while your license to carry firearms will cover your modern handgun, it will not cover a loaded long gun. And loaded long guns are expressly prohibited under Section 6107.
Oh my God.
And this is the funny part. Under Section 6107, you know what that law is titled? Carrying loaded weapons other than firearms. Because the conventional long guns are not quote-unquote firearms under Section 6102. So weapons other than firearms. We're not riding shotgun today.
So here is some ridiculous. I live in Massachusetts. I've been there for 30 years. I became a gun guy about 20 years ago. We have a firearms identification card and a license to carry. And with the firearms identification card, you can have non-large capacity rifles and shotguns. You cannot own handguns. You cannot have revolvers. You can't have any kind of handgun. However, in the Massachusetts laws, we have rifles, shotguns, and firearms. And in Massachusetts laws, a firearm is a handgun, but with a firearm identification card, you cannot possess a firearm.
No, makes sense, right?
Sure, sure.
The thing about these possessory offenses is a lot of times it feels like the legislature picked them out of a hat. And people have no instincts when it comes to this stuff. And that's why it's important for gun owners to know and understand the law. That's why we're real big on education. I wrote a book called Pennsylvania Gun Law, Armed and Educated. I always encourage people to get that.
Hold on a second. Is it this?
No.
Okay.
My book is a lot thicker than that.
All right.
I feel kind of embarrassed calling this a book. It's more it's like a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode. This is more of a pamphlet, Mike, isn't it? You call yourself an author. No, I'll have to get you a copy. Petrolino's got a copy of the book.
Gotcha. So the reason I ask is I went to an event in Greeley, Pennsylvania. I went to the Tommy Gun warehouse, to the Rod of Iron. And I've been going to
up there. Yes.
Yes.
I've taught many seminars over at Tommy Gun.
Excellent. So I go every year for this thing called the Rod of Iron Freedom Festival. And this past year, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a day and I'm going to get my Pennsylvania permit. So I drove out to, oh my gosh, Bonteville? I don't know. It's somewhere in the middle of nowhere.
Pike County that way.
It was 3 hours past Greeley.
Oh,
I drove 3 hours to Greeley, and then I drove 3 hours to, I think it was Bonteville, Pennsylvania, and I spent an hour. I spent the $20 in cash. Gave them a $20 bill. Waited for an hour, and then sat there, and that was the book that they had that talked about the Pennsylvania law. So I wasn't sure if that was it. So obviously,
no, that was not it.
Right. I mean, it's stapled together. I'm like, I don't know if this is really a book, but how crazy is it that I would pull this out?
Yeah, that's funny. I'll have to get you a copy of it. But,
awesome. Thank you.
The reason why it's important that people take the time, learn, and understand these laws when it comes to the possessory offenses is I deal with a lot of accidental criminals in my practice. And what I mean is these are people who have no intention of harming anybody, no intention of breaking the law, but because of misinformation or simply being uninformed, they fall victim to the criminal justice system. And I think a big mistake that people make is they have this misconception that as a gun owner, if you screw up one of these laws when it comes to possessory offenses, that's just slap on the wrist. They say, all right, you're not a bad guy, you're not a career criminal, you weren't trying to hurt anybody, so just don't do it again. That isn't how it works. They hold your feet to the fire. I think we could all agree that firearms are a hot button political issue, right?
Sure, absolutely.
And as a result, that trickles down the judges, the prosecutors. A lot of people say, well, I know the cops in my town and, you know, they're pro Second Amendment. That doesn't mean your prosecutor is. That doesn't mean the judges are.
Absolutely.
And you have to forgive me for not knowing the town you're talking about. I've done gun cases in 43 counties in Pennsylvania.
Right.
I'm a little of every place. I can't claim to remember every single one of them, unfortunately.
I thought I would remember what it was too. What I thought was really interesting is when I was looking into this, because I've been going to this for the last couple of years, and I thought about saying, hey, I'm going to figure out where it is that I can get a permit. But every county here does it differently.
They do.
Some of them say you mail it in and then they'll process everything and then I have 30 days to come pick it up. Some of them won't do the non-resident permit, and other ones, like the one that I went to, will do it while I wait. And I asked the lady, I said, how long does this take? She said, it could take as short as a few seconds. As short as a few seconds? Like, really? That's crazy.
Well, interesting, because when I became a gun owner, I was living in Oklahoma. And out there, they do things completely differently.
Oh, sure.
I had to attend an 8-hour course. I had to take 2 written exams, one on gun law, one on gun safety. I had to go out on the range and perform a shooting qualification. I had to get photographed, go down to the sheriff's department and get fingerprinted, submit all my information. I think it was after a 90-day background investigation is when I got my license. Now, when I decided to move to Pennsylvania, a few days after I moved, I was at the courthouse working on a case, so a completely unrelated matter.
Yeah.
The judge is being cranky, as they sometimes are, so he sends everybody to lunch. Judge goes, everybody out of my courtroom. Everybody go to lunch. I don't want to see anybody back in my courtroom for another hour. So I figured it's perfect timing at this point because I could just walk downstairs to the sheriff's office where you apply for your license to carry. I just moved there. So I walked on in, I started to fill out the application. And the deputy sitting there asks me, she says, well, how long do you plan on being in the courthouse today? And of course I started to complain. I told the judge, just sent everybody to lunch. I got an hour to kill right now. She cuts me off and said, I'll have you out of here in 15 minutes.
Oh my God.
So once I finished my application, I handed it on over. She ran my PICS check, which is our background check here in Pennsylvania. Everything cleared. So I got my picture taken and I left that same day with my license in hand. So a lot different than it was out in Oklahoma.
Right.
And it surprises a lot of people. A lot of people think Oklahoma is the Wild West where anything goes. They do have constitutional carry out there now. And we won't have to go into the 20-minute discussion that you and Evan had about constitutional versus permitless carry.
I love it.
I'll let Evan handle that.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's different everywhere. And I got to tell you, what I'm concerned about is when people say, well, there should just be one set of gun laws. I'm like,
no.
Here's the problem with that. We have the free America states, and then we have the occupied territory states, and the free America states don't want to give anything up, and the occupied states don't want to give anything.
That's exactly
so
right.
it's it's a stalemate. It's a Mexican standoff. Nobody's doing anything.
Now, I will say that I too am licensed to practice law in the People's Republic of New Jersey.
I was wondering this because you said you were going to have a case with Evan today.
I've been trying cases with Evan for years.
Gotcha.
I like to say that the prosecutor got so scared of dealing with me at Evan today that he asked for just a little more time so he could write his will and everything like that. But obviously we've got extremely oppressive gun laws over in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Same thing in New York. And when people say, hey, we should have one set and it's good for everywhere, well, you might end up with New York or New Jersey's laws, and that applies everywhere. So
everywhere, right.
As a Pennsylvania resident, no thank you. And I'm sure the Oklahoma residents would say the same thing, no thank you. And a lot of people don't have that perspective, though. If you're born and raised in Pennsylvania, you don't realize that there are places like New York and New Jersey. If you're born and raised in Oklahoma, you don't even realize that that's the case. I remember being out there and telling people about the way things were back home, and they would be confused. They'd say, what do you mean law-abiding citizens are not able to protect themselves and own guns? I probably skipped a little bit over there to where I was born and raised.
Right.
I like to tell it like this. So I was out in Philadelphia very recently working on a gun case, and a lot of the prosecutors in Philadelphia, they know me for what I do. They know me as the gun guy. Mike's showing up, there must be guns involved. So one of the prosecutors was curious about how I got into gun law. So she pulls me over to the side. She goes, Mike, I always wondered about how you got into gun law. Were you raised on a farm? Were you raised on a farm? As you could probably tell by the way I talk, I did not grow up on a farm. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. And although I represent law-abiding gun owners for a living, right? This is what I do from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to sleep.
Yeah.
My law firm's called the Gun Law Firm. I've given over 2,000 lectures all over the country to attorneys, government officials, law enforcement officers, concerned citizens alike. This is what I do all day and all night.
Right.
And although I represent law-abiding gun owners for a living, I often tell folks that being raised in Brooklyn, I had no idea what a law-abiding gun owner was.
Right.
There was no such thing as a law-abiding gun owner in Brooklyn.
Right.
Because there are ridiculous laws out there, only two types of people owned firearms. That was the NYPD, the police, and unfortunately, who else?
Criminals.
The criminals, 100%. So I had no concept of the law-abiding gun owner growing up. Now, fast forward a few years, I was offered a scholarship to play college baseball out in Oklahoma. And I quickly realized that we were not in Brooklyn anymore. Entirely different ball game in Oklahoma.
Right.
And that's where I developed what I call my healthy addiction to firearms.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And a little bit of a different upbringing than Even Nappen.
Right, he grew up hunting and shooting.
A little bit different. I didn't have that growing up. And his father was a professor. I love hanging out with Evan because he's got all this information. He'll pull you over and say, yeah, you see that statue over there? Here's the whole story about it for 30 minutes. He knows all kinds of things about history and everything. But me, I was a jock and I was a musician. I was a ball player. I went out to Oklahoma to play college baseball.
That's cool.
I wasn't raised, his dad was a professor, and my father, he was a musician.
Nice. What did your dad play?
He was a guitar player.
Very cool.
His music career was somewhat like my baseball career in the sense that we never got to the big leagues per se, but he did play Nassau Coliseum, opening up for the Squeeze and the Stray Cats.
That's cool.
They toured England 3 times.
Wow. See, it's not so horrible. I always tell people that I wanted to be a jazz guy and be a jazz trombone player and play the horn. But then I got to the point where I went to school for music and got a degree in education. And then a couple years after college, I ended up in a Motown disco funk band.
Motown disco funk band. That's what you said?
Band. Yes.
Interesting.
And we opened up back in my gigging days. I lived in Nashville for a little bit in the early 90s, and we played at Pigeon Forge one time, and we essentially opened up for Dolly Parton.
Wow.
Which was pretty cool. She wasn't playing, but she gives out a scholarship to kids in Pigeon Forge to graduate high school. So we played at the graduation ceremony. in Dollywood, which was cool. And then I think a couple weeks after that, a few months after that, we ended up going to Helsinki, Finland, and we played there for a few weeks at a nightclub. And when I ended up moving back to Boston, I ended up with again in a horn section in a funk band, and we opened up for Ray Charles one time. We opened up for Earth, Wind and Fire at one point, and we even played at Meatloaf's daughter's wedding.
No kidding.
Yes, so Meatloaf's daughter hired us to play at her wedding.
That's something else.
Yeah, and Meatloaf came up and did he did Mustang Sally with the lady that sang Paradise by the Dashboard Lights. So that was really cool. And I tell people I'm the only gun instructor you have that's open for Dolly and Ray Charles and Earth, Wind and
Right.
Fire. And they're like, what?
I got to ask you this because I always ask him about the stories when he was playing. He said that in Boston, he used to play a place called the Rathskeller. Are you
I never
familiar?
played at the Rathskeller.
Oh, but you're familiar.
Yes,
You know about it.
certainly. Yeah, in Kenmore Square. It's not there anymore, of course.
Not there anymore.
Yeah. God, there was one club I went to go see. In the 90s. In the 90s, I was teaching band in public schools, playing in a Motown disco funk band, wearing cowboy boots, and I played in a ska band as well. And somebody's like, "Holy crap, dude! You are all over the place."
A little of everything.
A little bit,
Yeah.
and
That's unique, though, right?
it is.
It's not
It
like
is.
everybody else.
Exactly. And one
It's
time,
okay to be unique.
it is. It absolutely is. So one time, I don't think it was the Rascal. I think it was some other club, but the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones were playing. So we went down to Kenmore Square. They called it the Hometown Throwdown, and they did like 4 or 5 nights at some clubs in Kenmore Square in Boston. It was really cool.
Good band.
Yeah, I love the Boss Tones band.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Interesting. My godfather was a man named Gary Corbett. He passed away fairly recently, unfortunately. Miss him very much. But Uncle Gary was the keyboard player for Kiss. He was the keyboard player for Cinderella.
wow,
Mhm.
that's pretty cool.
Multiple Grammy Awards.
That's awesome.
The list goes on and on of the people that he played with. Unfortunately, not too long before he passed away, I was able to make a song with him. I had written a song, and we were doing a special video for my radio show where we got a bunch of people to donate, and we're going giving care packages to homeless veterans in New York City. And we wanted to put music to the video that we made, interacting with everybody, guys by the VA and everything like that. And there's all kinds of issues with YouTube when you're using somebody else's music. So
Yeah,
we were
absolutely.
trying to figure out how do we make that work. And then it became, okay, well, why don't I just write a song, we'll record the song. And when I told him about it, he was right away on board. He said, let me get involved. And he ended up producing the whole thing.
Oh,
He got
that's
his
great.
engineers involved. It was really great to be able to do something alongside him like that before he passed away. And we'll have that forever. And that's the good thing about music.
Yeah.
But miss him dearly. And I will say that although he was living in Brooklyn when I was growing up, he eventually moved to Florida and then the Nashville area in Tennessee. And when he left New York, he too quickly became a gun owner and developed a healthy addiction to firearms. So as I got older and I went out to Oklahoma, and I'd always see him out all over the place because I knew that he was coming to town no matter what, a couple of times a year. He was playing with Chris Cagle at the time, a country musician. And so we'd go and see him and everything like that. And we got to talk about guns and everything. And,
That's cool.
And found out that he had owned guns since he had left New York and everything. So
Oh my gosh,
that was something that we had to talk about.
that is really cool.
Pretty cool. But yeah, growing up, was not around guns.
Mhm.
Was heavily into the martial arts. We like to joke around and say that if you walk into a police station in New York and you say you want a gun, they'll tell you, take a hike and go learn karate. Obviously, things are a little bit different today with New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin decision. Thank you, Justice Clarence Thomas.
Oh my gosh.
But for my entire life living over there, that's what it was like. But I was very much into the martial arts and combat sports, and anybody who gets into that will tell you that's a little bit of an addictive thing, sort of the way firearms are.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're always buying this gun, thinking about what your next gun's going to be, right?
Absolutely. You know how many guns you need?
Just
One. Just one
more.
more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does the healthy addiction to firearms turn into a law career?
You know, that's a great question. When I was in law school, I attended law school having no intention of being a practicing attorney.
All right. I went to music school to be a musician, a music teacher.
That's a good point.
Why do people go to law school without wanting to be an attorney?
Well, it could be valuable for a number of different things. It could set you
Okay.
apart as a candidate in a number of different roles. For me personally, I was a college baseball player.
Mhm.
Oklahoma Baptist University. We went to the NEI World Series my senior year. It was a great experience. Unfortunately, I had 5 surgeries during my college career, and after the 5th one, I was told I needed to hang it up and had no say in the matter. So that came to an end, and I wanted to stay involved in the game.
Mhm.
And the idea was that I would represent athletes in contract negotiations.
Okay.
And if I was going to do that, I figured it would be a good thing to have a law degree.
Right.
And that's in addition to your credentials. So a lot of people who come in from the law side don't necessarily have the sports background.
Sure. Oh yeah. No, that makes sense.
But my undergrad was in sports management. And so that's what I was studying
That's pretty
at
cool.
the time. And so in law school, I had every intention of doing that. I founded the Sports and Entertainment Law Society. Had guest speakers do the Skype thing before it was cool. We figured out that we could get some pretty prominent speakers to come on with us for 10 minutes. So the society actually had no members when I signed up, when I started going to school. They didn't have a Sports and Entertainment Law Society. So the dean said, we don't have one, you could start one.
Mhm.
And so we figured out we could get people to show up to these meetings and join if we get some pretty high profile speakers, and you only got to get them on there for 10 minutes virtually.
Right. Exactly.
And nobody was doing it at the time.
You've got the video, you've got the flyer,
Right.
so here's who we're having.
We had the projections, projection screen and everything like that,
Mhm.
and bring people in. So we had some pretty great events like that. It's long before now everybody does
Long
things
before
virtual,
Zoom, yeah.
long before that. So we did well with that. We also leave it to a Brooklyn guy. Organized, we'll call them contests, right? These contests where you try to predict the outcome of different athletic competitions, you know? And, you put a few bucks.
Contests
You
to
put,
predict the future outcome.
yeah, you put in a few bucks, and if you win the contest, then you get some kind of a prize. There's no monetary payout or anything like that, but we raised a ton of. We became the second largest organization in the entire school. Believe it or
Oh
not.
my God, that's
And these
awesome.
are other organizations who have national backings. Like you go to the Federalist Society, let's say, you talk to somebody in California, they have a Federalist Society. They're getting
Right.
backings from these national organizations. We didn't have that, unfortunately. We'll figure out a way.
That's so cool, man. That's great.
We started an intramural team, right? Because we wanted to get the word out there.
Yeah.
So I get this intramural team. We called ourselves the Legal Reapers. You got the Grim Reaper with the big gavel. And I had everybody on this intramural softball team who played Division I, played professional baseball. I think the least qualified guy played Division II baseball
Oh my God.
on that softball team. We went out there. Our third baseman was in AAA with the Angels organization. Our shortstop was in the minor leagues with the St. Louis organization. And we went out there the first half of the inning. I think we put up like 15 runs without recording it out.
Oh my God.
They changed the rules of the league. So that way you had to, if you put up 10 runs, then the inning was over for the rest
Oh
of the
my
season.
gosh! All of a sudden, it's like playing with kids, right?
Yeah,
You know, when kids play, they got what, like the 8-run rule or something like that.
it was pretty funny though, because you'd have like these fraternity teams come out there and they think we were legit and everything,
Right.
and just absolutely smoked.
Smoked them. That's great.
But that was a fun aspect of law school for sure.
That is cool.
A little bit of the culture shock with Oklahoma and everything. I remember there was this place in Fort Worth called Billy Bob's. You ever hear of it?
Heard of Bob's Country Bunker.
Billy Bob's is the world's largest honky tonk, is how they advertise it. And
Oh,
they'll
that's
have like, Chris Cagle played over there. That was the first time I went over there because my uncle was playing with him.
Yeah.
And it holds quite a significant amount of people. And they also got pool tables and bars and everything like that. So we were in Dallas, and There's a UFC fight on. I think it was GSP and Nick Diaz, if I'm not mistaken. And this is a fight that was long in the works, like years leading up to it. I'm waiting for it for a long time. So I'm like, I don't care what we do the rest of the evening, boys, but come 10 o'clock, I'm sitting down somewhere in front of a TV and I'm watching these fights. So we're trying to figure out where do we watch the fights. I'm calling around all these different places. So I said, let me call Billy Bob's. So I called up Billy Bob's. I said, are you guys showing the fights tonight? And they said, sir, Dwight Yoakam is playing here this evening. And I said, okay, but are you showing the fights?
Right.
They're like, sir, I just told you Dwight Yoakam is playing here this evening. I said, listen, lady, I'm sorry. I'm from out of town, but am I supposed to know who this Dwight Yoakam guy is? and of course, come on to find out that that's basically sacrilege out there, Country Hall of Fame and everything like that.
Oh, my God.
When we first moved to Oklahoma, I remember one of the guys on the team, there was a song playing over the speakers. He goes, G, because they called me G. Giaramita doesn't go over very well in Oklahoma, right? So G is enough.
You can hold that against you.
G is enough. So he's like, G, you know this song? I said, no, I don't know this song. He goes, well, do they not have very many country stations up in New York? And I said, no, it's not that they don't have very many country stations. They don't have any country stations in New York. Now, from what I understand, that's changed since then. But growing up, you didn't hear a single bit of country music. It's very strange to be conservative-minded, living over there and being raised over there. It's just, I'm sure you understand, being from Chicago area,
Midwest,
and Massachusetts.
I didn't pay attention to politics until I was 30.
Really?
Yeah, I wanted to play music, I wanted to drink beer, and I wanted to watch girls dance. Like nothing else really matters.
What sparked your interest in politics?
I had a kid. Like having a kid, becoming a father changed a lot of stuff. And that's when I started to become a gun guy and say, hey, listen, I got this little guy that I need to protect and take care of, and I think this is what I'm going to do. So, and then it's just, like you said, it's a healthy addiction.
Sure is.
I became an instructor so I could support my shooting habit.
That's not a bad plan.
Right.
Not a bad plan.
So anyway, growing up, New York, no country music.
Yeah, no country music, no guns. It's like prison, right? But I ended up going out to Oklahoma on the scholarship. And I will tell you this, people knock sports and everything like that. Mm-hmm. If I were not a ball player, I would not be where I am today. There's simply no way I would have been hanging out in Oklahoma for undergraduate studies.
Sure.
If I were not playing college baseball. So it really did change my life in that aspect. And of course, there's a lot of lessons that you learn from playing sports about who you are, how deep you could dig, about being competitive. And winning and losing, absolutely. Winning and losing. I will say this, that the parents had to have a lot of talkings to with me growing up, that I wasn't such a great loser, maybe. I never understood that. It's like, what do you mean great loser? Like, the point of the game is to win, right? If you're
great, you're not a loser.
You're going to be competitive, right? The point of the game is to win. They asked Derek Jeter one time, do you feel good that you finished second this year? You guys went to the World Series and you lost. He said, no. I don't feel good at all. There's no consolation there.
Right.
Is the point of the game to win.
Yeah.
And doing that at a greater stage these days, in my practice, it's not a game by any stretch of the imagination, but there is a competitive aspect to litigation, obviously, and we go out there and we want to win, as if it's our own life that's on the line. As it's my family who's needs to be protected here.
Absolutely.
Because there are people who want to restore their rights that come to me, and the reason is they want to protect their family. And if we don't get that accomplished, then they're not going to have that ability to protect their family. So we treat that just as if that were our own child who needed to be defended under those circumstances.
Yeah.
Tremendous amount of misconceptions about who can and can't own guns. That much I can tell you. If you listen to the people on the news that, anybody can walk into a gun store and walk out with a gun, easy peasy, no big deal.
As Barack Obama said, it's easier to get a gun than it is to get a library card. Not so much. Man.
Which library was that guy going to?
I know.
There's such a disconnect with these politicians too, because I did not grow up in a great area. My father, God bless him, worked very hard to get us into a better area than he was raised in. He was raised in the Marlboro Projects. and that's where our Little League football team was, right in that area.
Yeah.
We lived in a one-bedroom apartment when I was growing up. And I challenge any of these anti-gun politicians, or Mike Bloomberg, if you will, take a walk around the Marlboro projects at night one time. No guards, no weapons, no nothing.
Right.
Just take a walk.
Just take a walk.
See how nicely you're treated over there, and how much you believe in gun control and how it's working out for you at that point.
No kidding.
Because these are people who don't have to live with those consequences. Clarence Thomas said as much in one of his dissents. He said, you know, for you people who are making your decisions from marble halls with armed guards, you don't have to deal with these situations. And it's easy for you to sweep this stuff under the rug, but for the common man on the street, that's not the case. And, you know, they talk about the gun lobby, right? The antis talk about the gun lobby, the big bad NRA and GOA, and they got all these politicians in their pockets, and we got to stand up to the gun lobby. Well, think about what the anti-gun lobby is, right? The anti-gun lobby is all of mainstream media, right? Every single channel you could possibly find,
Right.
all of Hollywood, all of the music industry, any level of entertainment, the education systems, right?
Totally.
That's all the anti-gun lobby.
It's crazy to me to think back when I think when Trump was running the first time, the anti-gun wackos came out. They're like, the NRA gave Trump $30 million. How much money did Bloomberg give the Democrats?
It's a false underdog complex. That's what it is. They want people who were naive enough to get sucked into their agenda to think that they're the underdog. And of course, you got to stand up for the underdog. We stand with the underdog. But it's total nonsense. You know, all these billionaires that are behind the anti-gun agenda.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
The common person on the street, John Lott has done studies. Guy Smith is another great author, has done studies about who the license to carry schemes really impact when you're talking about expanding the ability to get licensed to carry. And the most profound impacts you see are minorities in inner cities and among the elderly. It's the great equalizer, right?
Right.
God made man, Sam Colt made him equal.
Yeah, I have an old Bill Jordan book. It's called No Second Place Winner, and he was Bill Jordan was a Border Patrol agent, and in one of the chapters it said something like, "Fear no man, no matter his size. With me in your hands, I will equalize." And that's pretty cool.
You said the book is called No Second Place Winner?
No Second Place Winner, yeah.
That's interesting. We were just talking about that, right?
Right. So yeah, Bill Jordan. It's a great little book. You can find it. It's obviously used. It came out in the 50s, I think. But Bill Jordan was a Border Patrol agent.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. It's definitely a good read. Definitely.
You big on reading?
I like buying books more than I like reading them, which is a horrible problem.
It's kind of depressing, though, isn't it? Right?
It is,
because you start to amass this collection. You're like, dude, I don't know if I got enough years left. I don't know if I got enough beach vacations left in my lifetime to get through all this stuff.
Yeah, I love buying books. I'm a little bit of a junkie. I always think that this book I buy is going to be the one that makes all the changes in my life and gets my stuff together. And it never is because I don't read it. But,
the next book that you buy that's going to change your life is called Pennsylvania Gun Law, Armed and Educated. I'm just kidding.
I know. I'll get rid of this thing. Oh my gosh.
And did you get a copy of Nappen's book?
I do not have a copy of Nappen's book. You know what I do have, though? When I did the show with him, he gave me the orange Nappen Zippo that says, "Don't get burned by the law."
Don't get burned by the law. I got another good one for you, because I noticed at the beginning of your episode with him, he was playing around with your credit card knife and everything that. And it's just a total Evan thing. He was talking about cutting your debt and everything like that. I remember one time we were getting together at this cigar lounge where they also sell food. Evan and I both love cigars. We both love food. That's why we've become dear friends over the years. And
no offense to Evan, because he might listen to this, but you're not in the shape that Evan's in if you really love food.
Just ate a filet in front of you, right?
Yeah, but you didn't have the potatoes or the asparagus.
That is true. Keep an eye on everything. There's something about being in shape, I kind of let it go after all the years of being a competitive athlete because you're on a rigorous schedule. One thing that anybody who ever played with me would say that nobody worked harder than Mike G. I was not the most talented guy, but nobody worked harder than me.
That's
I
nice.
spent hours upon hours upon hours in the gym while other guys were out partying. I was getting better. And, that wears on you. And when it's time to hang it up and you've had 3 knee surgeries and you need a replacement when you're 30 years old and everything like that, you got to kind of figure out how do I make this work in staying in shape. And I kind of let it go for quite some time. And sometime in May of 2021, I was at my absolute worst, looked myself in the mirror and said, you know what? I hate myself. Well, look at this. I need to make a change. So I started eating right. I got on a workout program. Shout out to Jeff Cavalier of Athlete X. Used to be the strength trainer for the New York Mets.
Wow.
And got on one of his programs. And now it's 6 days a week and making sure that everything you put in your body is counted for.
That's awesome.
And if you go and you eat whatever you want, and you don't look at, okay, how many calories in this, it's like going to the store and saying, all right, I'll take this TV and I'll take that stereo system and I'll take that camera and that drone, and you don't even ask what it costs, right? And just put it on the tab. I don't care what it costs. I'll just pay for it.
Right.
And it definitely, when you're somebody who has to work as many hours that I do with my profession, keeping your body in shape, making sure you get up an hour earlier every day to make sure you get a hard workout in, it's good for your mental health. So anybody who's listening and you're not sure whether it's a good idea to get in shape, 100% do it. You won't be sorry about that.
Very cool. All right, so how long have you been practicing law? Did I assume you ended up working with someone else before you started your own?
So November of 2014 is when I started practicing law in Pennsylvania. Got licensed to practice in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. My wife was born and raised in Sussex County, New Jersey. I don't know if you've ever been up there, but it is absolutely God's country. If they'd sell it to Pennsylvania, I would move there, frankly. And it's the kind of place where everybody's into guns. And I mean, the first time I legitimately saw cows in person was going to visit my wife when we were dating up there. And so I got licensed to practice in Jersey as well. And, we're back in the East Coast. Decided on Pennsylvania specifically because I didn't want to be across the country from our families. She missed her family.
Sure.
And I didn't want to only see my family once every few years the way I had been. So we moved back to the East Coast, but we got to find a place where I can continue to exercise my Second Amendment rights, because at that point, I'm licensed to carry, I'm a gun owner, I'm a member of an indoor training academy, and training every Friday, Saturday evening, and it's not something that I was willing to give up. I got used to owning firearms, got used to carrying everywhere I could legally carry to protect myself and my loved ones, and I'm not giving all that up to cross some imaginary line and move back to Brooklyn. So took a look around and decided Pennsylvania looks like a good fit. I can get a license to carry, I can continue to enjoy my Second Amendment rights, and we'll be close enough to family.
Nice.
Now, mind you, at that point in time, I have no intention of being a firearms attorney. That is not why I moved to Pennsylvania. I moved here specifically to continue to exercise my Second Amendment rights because I was a gun guy at that point.
Right.
I developed that healthy addiction to firearms, but had never considered putting that together with my legal practice. And ultimately, there is a law firm who is looking for an attorney to head up their new Second Amendment practice in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. A man by the name of Justin McShane, who's incredibly accomplished. I mean, this guy tried numerous death penalty cases, phenomenal attorney, combat sports enthusiast himself. He actually competes on, I believe it's called, don't kill me if I'm wrong, Justin, I think it's called the senior circuit. It's for the next age level up. Not saying that he's a senior by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
But I think that's what they call the level of competition. And so he's starting this new Second Amendment division in this practice because he had become incredibly popular for DUI and he had done death penalty cases. And so they're looking to start this, and the ad said that the interest in firearms is paramount. Well, that's good, because when you're right out of law school. You don't have a ton of experience, right?
Right.
But I could definitely do the interest in firearms thing. So I reach out to this. That would be something. This is something I really care about, obviously, because I moved to a place where I know literally nobody,
Right.
so I can continue to own my guns.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said it would be good to be able to help protect this right for other people. So I reached out to him and let him know, hey, listen, I just graduated, just passed the bar. I don't have any experience, but I'm definitely interested in firearms.
I have this this healthy addiction.
Healthy addiction, and I was certainly willing to go all in on the Second Amendment and bet literally everything to move to a place where I knew nobody, just so I could exercise my rights. And so he said, "You're in." Now, when I was in law school, I was with a firm called Smolin and Reitman, and the way I ended up getting in over there was a professor recommended me. It was a firm that he was of counsel at the firm. And he said, hey, you take a look at this guy. You probably want to hire him. Now, this is a personal injury, big time civil litigation. For them to come back with a verdict of $10 million was not a big deal. Not to say it wasn't a big deal, but it wasn't like, oh my goodness, this is a once in a lifetime. It was not a once in a lifetime thing for Smolin and Reitman. These guys are the real deal.
They've been there before.
And so I was involved with all this litigation against government entities and Fortune 500 companies, civil litigation, state and federal court. So when I get to the McShane firm and get that job over there, U.S. Law Shield decided that they wanted to sue the city of Harrisburg. Keep in mind, I'm 2 weeks out of law school, right? Nobody else at the firm has any civil litigation experience. These are all criminal attorneys. See, Mike, you've had cases against Petrolino, parts and all these other places, right? I don't know. Maybe we should cut that out. I don't know. We're gonna get sued for talking about that.
We'll edit it out.
Right, you've had these cases against all these Fortune 500 companies and government entities. This is yours, man. Take the ball and run with it. So I filed this suit against the city of Harrisburg for their illegal gun ordinances. And we got the court to issue a preliminary injunction suspending the ordinances, which is something that other organizations had tried to do and were unsuccessful. So we get these ordinances suspended. So instantly I'm on every news station in Harrisburg.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sure Cam. Cam was on this program before, right?
Yes.
Cam Edwards? Yeah, Cam was.
I've had Cam recently.
Cam was kind enough to have me on his program twice during that period of time. Once in person at the Great American Outdoor Show, and once by phone, so I could give everybody an update about how the judge ordered those ordinances suspended, and quickly became the gun guy. And those are the kinds of people that would reach out at that point in time. And Justin at the time was the lead program attorney for U.S. Law Shield, which is a membership organization. Evan's the New Jersey attorney. Yes,
and he's the New Hampshire attorney as well.
And the New Hampshire attorney, that's correct.
Yeah. This isn't paid, but I am also a U.S. Law Shield member.
It's good to be a U.S. Law Shield member. It's very sad when people call me after a defensive incident and they're not a U.S. Law Shield member. I'll put it that way. But Justin decided that he wanted to move on, and I stepped into the lead program attorney role with U.S. Law Shield and started my own practice. And so we started the gun law firm, Giaramita Law Offices, in January of 2016. And we now have... I guess it's technically 4 offices. 3 we're at most of the time.
Wow.
And
that's cool.
There's not been a slow day since the city of Harrisburg case.
Blessed with work. That's awesome.
Yeah, I frequently appear on Newsmax television to discuss Second Amendment issues. Got a weekly radio program on Fox News Radio.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up as well. So I know we're getting close to back to where we need to be. But tell us about Mike G in the morning.
Mike G in the morning.
MikeGinthemorning.com.
MikeGinthemorning.com. All right.
Hey now.
Hey now. It's 11:80 a.m. WFYL. And it airs at 7 a.m. on Fridays over the airwaves. So if we were driving this way, we could listen to it. And we had quite a few listeners over the air. I'm blessed to be at a good time slot for that. And then people will also tune into a live stream on Thursday evenings. And you can check out the previous episodes on YouTube, Mike G in the Morning. And people ask what it's about, because it's not just about guns. Obviously, I'm the gun guy.
Right.
I'm expected to talk about guns. So we do.
Right. You had somebody on recently about child custody stuff.
Yeah.
And then
that's
there was
from my
another
office.
one.
Richard Roberts was talking about government taking people's kids away for ridiculous reasons.
Yeah.
So.
And then there was another one I listened to with a woman that helps women get themselves back together.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. They're very good people out in Philadelphia area. So we'll talk about a little bit of everything, and then we could be talking about totally nonsense. One of our most popular topics, believe it or not, was we had this whole debate as to whether when you're in a public restroom that's unisex, right?
Mm-hmm.
Men could go in there, women could go there. If you're a gentleman and you're using the facility, when you're finished, should you leave the seat up or put it back down? Now, a lot of the women inevitably voted, you put it back down, that's out of respect. But I say, nay, sir. Because us gentlemen know what kinds of pigs the other gentlemen are. And if we put that seat back down, then the next pig who walks in there is not going to lift it up. And then the woman's going to be in bad shape when she comes in.
Right. She's going to have to clean it off.
So she's going to have to clean it off, or she's going to have to do some kind of maneuver, right?
Right. She's going to have to stand off.
She's going to have to stand, right? Maybe there's going to be a funnel involved. I don't know. But I think that was
there's a
one
possibility she could also pee on the seat.
That is true. That is true. It's only fair, right?
Right.
So that became, I remember we were going to talk about it. I mentioned something about it maybe in one of the meetings before, and somebody, maybe it was the producer, says, no, don't talk about that. And when I get pushed back, don't talk about that, I know I'm onto something.
About that.
I know I'm onto something. And so, of course, we talked about it. It became incredibly popular among the audience for like 2 or 3 weeks in a row. And people didn't want to shut up about it. So I've had people say it's like a conservative Howard Stern, because we're talking about a little of everything.
Yeah.
We're a little itchy, I guess, a little controversial perhaps. There's a lot of things like that. Whenever I get the no, don't do that,
right, there's a very good chance.
It's 10 times in the other direction. I know I'm onto something when somebody tells you don't do that.
That's awesome.
We had one. We went into the studio. It's myself, Philly, Chris, and the owner of the station. Now, the owner of the station, her name is Susan Locke. She's an older lady, and she is from Oklahoma, believe it or not, and a highly devout Christian lady. Great woman, awesome woman in every respect. But the kind of person where if you don't know her too well, then you might think twice about taking chances around her, you know?
Sure.
You know that she's, I don't want to say, buttoned up or anything like that, but you don't really know her sense of humor when she's the owner of the station and you know X, Y, and Z about her.
Right. You probably don't want to piss her off.
Right. Yeah. You definitely don't want to irritate her. So Chris and I go in there and I decide we're going on the air today, and I'm going to be Snowflake Snowflakington, and you're going to be Sammy the Socialist, and give no notice to the station.
Oh my gosh.
So we go in there, and my music hits. They play the Rocky theme as my intro music on the air, and it's usually good morning, to our loyal WFYL listeners around the world. But instead, I go in there and I say, good morning, everybody. This is Snowflake Snowflakington, and continue to talk about every single leftist talking point. I remember that. I was like, what can I say that will get some, our target market? Think, my dad, maybe. Somebody in their 60s who's ultra conservative. Because, by the way, the reason I ended up in conservative talk radio is my dad was a total conservative talk radio junkie growing up. I'm talking 6 radios around the house with conservative talk radio 24/7. So that's how I got into it. But I'm picturing somebody like him, like what are the things that would really irritate him? So we're talking about how, it's inappropriate to have Christmas trees, and it's great that these athletes are kneeling down during the national anthem, and guns are horrible. And off the top of my head, I come up with, guns are scary, and only the government should have them. And instead of carrying a gun, you know what I carry? I carry a bag of bees. I carry a Ziploc bag filled with attack bees. And I hear the station owner on the other side of the microphone start to laugh out loud. And I said, we got something here. We got her laughing. We're doing something totally wildly inappropriate right now. We gave them no notice. If we got her, we're on to something here.
That's awesome.
So Snowflake, Snowflakington, and Sammy the Socialist.
That is great. That is awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, listen, we need to call it soon. We're almost back to where we need to be. How can people find you, and how can they find Mike G in the morning? How can they find all your stuff?
So if you are, yes. So at the gun law firm, we believe in the right to protect yourself and your loved ones. So we help hardworking. At the gun law firm, we believe in the right to protect yourself and your loved ones. And so we help hardworking individuals restore their firearms rights. And if you have something from Pennsylvania that requires restoration of your rights, you can go to thegunlawfirm.com. Mm-hmm. If you want to check out the radio show, you can go to MikeGinTheMorning.com, and you can check out our YouTube channel, subscribe, because I have a feeling you'll be on our program in the near future, my friend.
Oh, dude, I can't wait.
I'm going to hold you hostage.
I can't wait, man. I can't wait. Mike, thank you so much for being on the the We'll put some links to the YouTube channel. We'll put some links to the biz. If you are not a member of the Second Amendment Foundation, you need to join them at saf.org. You can find all of your favorite pro-freedom podcasts at sdrn.us. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend. It is how we get the stagecoach across America. And if you're a U.S. Law Shield member, you need to, or if you're not a U.S. Law Shield member, you should join that as well. And this was a lot of fun, man. I can't wait till we do this again. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks a lot.
Subscribe to Riding Shotgun. Hit the notification bell.
That one's full. Look in this one.
Subscribe to Riding Shotgun. Hit the notification bell.